James.
And I'm Sasha,
Welcome to another episode of Fix Me Upper.
where we're going to help you embark on a personal renovation. So, I heard that you want to embark on a personal renovation to make a change in your life. So, I've had some experience on home renovations, and I know a lot of people who are really into the idea of fixing up their home and making it something really special, because I think our homes are our way of expressing ourselves. We invite people in, and it says something about us. So why shouldn't we make our personal home, our safe space, a comfortable space?
That's a great idea.
Just like we do with our houses.
Absolutely. We have, we have to feel good within our own personal home, which is ourselves. And if you want to do it to your house and make your house look good, why would you want to do it to yourself?
Exactly. So, as I said, I've had some experience with home renovations, and it doesn't always look as fantastic as it does going through the 30-minute episodes on your favorite TV show.
Yeah, there's a little bit of work involved, I think, huh?
It can be much rockier and much dirtier than that. So, when you decide to make a change, the contractor doesn't just show up the next day.
Absolutely.
There's a whole process involved in making that change and preparing for that change, but it does start with a contract.
Yes, it starts with a contract, but prior to a contract, you have to know what the scope of work is. So that, in other words, you have to know what it is that you want to renovate. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know that, no use calling a contractor because you won't know who to call. Right? Exactly. So once you define your scope of work and say you want to be better at something, you're not happy with the way you conduct yourself in a certain way or how you handle situations, that's your scope of work. And once you have that defined, then you're going to sign the personal contract.
Sign the personal contract.
Okay. So,
what's that?
It's a contract.
It's quite lengthy.
Well, yeah, it is.
Giving me anxiety, and this is not what the show is supposed to do.
Yeah, but you said
put
contract.
Put that away. We're going to do a contract that is within ourselves, that we can easily remember that there's not any tricky fine print, because the world is out there creating tricky fine print for us. Let's not do it to ourselves. Really, all change starts with ourselves, with the I. I make my own change. I make my own life. And we have a way of memorizing the steps of change for successful change. We call them the 7 I's.
So I.
Yes, so you'll never forget that the I in the equation has to be the one that's doing it.
Okay.
So, our first step is to identify that we need to make a change at all. Because when we're flipping back into our home renovations, if we're quite content with the way the paint color looks or the state of the kitchen, that's perfectly fine, even if everybody else doesn't agree. But if we identify that we see a need for change, that the kitchen needs the remodel, per se, that's the first step in starting to make a change, just the recognition that there needs to be one. Then we start to sort of investigate. So that's our second I, investigate. We think about, how would we like it to look? Or how much is this actually going to cost me? Is it even worth it? When we're making changes and we see people make changes in their own, personal homes, we often struggle. We get stuck in this investigation and we don't really know what we want.
Is some of it because we want to try to be like someone else? Because we think they're happy?
Perhaps so. So we really need to investigate within ourselves, within our own hearts. What does this really mean to me to make this change? And then we start to really imagine, when we know what it is that we want, we start to feel it. I really see this kitchen looking this style. I really know how I want to project myself to the world and have others appreciate me for it. So that's that imagine, that's our third I, where we really get the appreciation of the need for change, and we really get to see it happen in our minds. But then we actually have to start gathering our support to make the change. And so our fourth I is to include others.
You mean it doesn't just happen on its own?
I know, it would be so nice.
Oh, yeah.
So we actually do have to include others, and that's a really hard step for a lot of people, because making personal change, as human beings, we have to include something else outside of ourselves, a reason, a value. It might not be a specific person supporting you, but it might be a whole concept supporting you. And that we need to really include that to make the change worthwhile for ourselves. And then once we start including that support team, getting the contractors involved more or less, we can initiate that first step.
Okay.
Which is our fifth I. So look, it took 5 steps just to get to the point that we're starting to make a change.
And how long does that take to get there?
That depends. I have a little bit of a funny story. My parents wanted to get new paint colors on their walls, and my mother was the initiator. So she went out and bought a couple things of paint, put a couple splotches on the wall, and then she said, okay, to my dad, you go ahead and do it. Well, they never did pick a paint color. The spots stayed there for about a year. And then we painted white back over them. Not because we liked white, but because we couldn't decide. So a lot of people do that with their own personal renovations. They might have a burst, an impulse to do something, and then
Back off?
it just doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere. They just go right back to where they're comfortable with it, right?
Yes.
You find your comfort zone in your surroundings, in your home. You also do that within yourself. Because you feel comfortable, not necessarily because it's good. It may be something that's not good, so this is where you come to this point where you say, I would like to change this about myself. So if you think about, even if you are a pretty good person, you feel good about yourself and what you're doing, you may say, well, what's the worst thing about me? A tough question to ask yourself. What's the worst thing about me? What is it I don't like about me? And it doesn't have to be anything big. It'd be something simple, and you may say, hey, I think I want to change that.
Well, what I found is a lot of people have a whole list of things they don't like, but remember, as part of being a fixer-upper, is that we have to have something that we do like to make the fixing up worthwhile, because that's building the foundation that we change off of.
So you may have a great living room, but just a horrible kitchen.
Right. So we recognize that area that we want to change, and we recognize that we want to change it because we appreciate something else about it. And we can't just sell ourselves and go build on new ground, so it doesn't quite work that way. So we need to make ourselves those fixer-uppers and appreciate what's already been in place. So after we start initiating those changes, there are still 2 more steps left. So we initiate a change, but then we really need to invest in that change. So after we paint the splotches, we need to commit to a color. And that takes some commitment, and that investment is where we actually see the change. We put some blood, sweat, and tears into making a decision, letting some other ones go, and then putting the paint on the wall.
So it's sort of like sticking your toe in the water and finding out how cold it is before you want to go in.
Yes, and then the investment is jumping in.
Okay, and if you were to stick your toe in the water and it was too cold, and I happened to throw you in, would that resolve anything?
I'd be cold and wet, I guess, but no. And
Well,
so those changes don't make people appreciate themselves. So if somebody has forced change on you, then it's not going to be the space that you wanted it. And so that's why all of these steps are important, because even if somebody makes a big change for you, you're going to revert back to where you're comfortable eventually, unless you found a reason for that change. So that's why my parents didn't go through any prior step to initiate when they put that paint on the wall, and they ended up back where they started.
So you have to really start from the beginning of the first I and work your way through all those steps in order to get to where you need to be.
Correct. And the importance of these steps is to help you identify where you're at, because you can't jump from 1 to 7. So if you recognize that you're only at 1, and that's perfectly okay, you know where you need to work on just to get to 2. Because it can be overwhelming to go from I'm ready to do this rental project to actually getting the job done.
Yeah, and
So-
too many times I think we identify something, we want to go right to 7.
Yes.
We can sort of panic and just say, I need to paint that wall a different color, and we'll throw whatever is lying around, any kind of paint on it. It has to be different. So identify there's something we don't like about it, and we just think we can just change it that quickly, but there's more work to it than that.
Yeah, and these are the 7 I's for successful change that we can later appreciate. So the very last one is incorporate. So once we go through all of these changes, once the whole room is, beautiful, we need to actually put the furniture back in and live in it. We can't just, walk through and go, oh, that's the reno room. We're gonna leave it as is. Nobody set anything down on the newly bought furniture because you might damage it. We want to actually enjoy the changes that we make and incorporate them into our life, because that's what makes change worth it in the end, and that's what builds our confidence to make more changes. Because if you have a whole house that's kind of run down and the kitchen reno gets done but goes terrible, you won't get to any other room.
That's true, yeah. And the other thing about it is once you put that furniture back and you rearrange things, and you may just like rearrange furniture, that's fine. But now you're going to enjoy that room in kind of like a different kind of feel to it, and enjoy that furniture like you've never enjoyed it before, and say, this is really comfortable because I went through all those 7 steps to get there, and I'm pretty sure about it now because I went through 7 steps to get there. So by the time you get through all the steps, you're pretty sure about it. If you get to 3 of the steps and you get to imagine, or before you start including people, you may say, I imagine it, and it's not going where I thought I might imagine it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. You might have to just do some tweaking in there to identify what it is you want that's going to give you that
Extra appreciation.
Yeah, extra appreciation. Then when you get to the 7th step, then all this is in place. You get a good feeling because you feel like you accomplished something. You got to somewhere, you feel good about yourself, and probably the next thing is what's next.
Absolutely. And so when we embark on this whole journey to fix ourselves up, why do we even want a fixer-upper to begin with in a home? It's because when you actually go through all of the hassle of taking down wallpaper and putting up new paint and refinishing floors, you can walk into that house and walk on the same floorboards that somebody did 100 years ago, and touch that same handrail as you go down the stairs that somebody else did on the night of their prom, dressed in a beautiful dress.
Exactly.
And that's something that a new fancy house will never be able to give us. So when we look at ourselves and we want to fix ourselves up, I want you to look in the mirror and feel that same way. Feel that sense of warmth and home, because ultimately the home in the heart is the most rewarding renovation that we can make.